last time you met me, we'd worked up to this stage where we'd done all our cutting. We'd cut all our finger joints, we've assembled the product, we glued it, and we put it into the strap clamp. We can now take the strap clamp off, keeping in mind that the strap is dangerous. We talked about that because it can be nice and sharp. We need to make sure that we use the strap clamp carefully. Okay, there's marks on the outside of this product. As we talked about, there's A's, B's, C's, D's, so we don't get our sides confused. Also the arrow up. Okay, from here we would have sanded our product, and now we have a nice clean surface. This is undergone the same process, but at the moment we have sanded all four sides and we've also placed in the base. So the base fits in nice and tight. We must now nail that base in. Okay, the process follows. We need 5 nails on the long side, 4 nails on the short side. Get your nails. Now the base is 19mm thick. That means you can come up at least 10mm from the edge to make sure that you're nailing through the body of the work. We don't want to get too close to the bottom because the nails can pierce through, and that means we need to remove those nails and have another go. At this stage we've nailed down the side. We need to punch those nails with the nail punch and the hammer. We place the punch on top of the nails, just give a gentle tap. That pushes the head below the surface, which allows for a good solid purchase on the timber. Once we've done that, of course we've gone 5 down the long side, 4 down the short side. We need to putty up those nail holes. This is the only time we use putty. We don't put putty in our joins. Even if we do have a gap, we don't put putty in our joins. We putty up our nail holes. This covers the hole in a product that is a very similar colour to the timber that we use. Once that's dry, we now required to sand the rest of the surface. You can still see that this has been sanded to some degree, but there is still some marks on there. Okay. So we may take out the orbital sander, which of course is the only electrical device that you will use, and of course you've done a risk assessment for. The orbital sander is hooked up to the vacuum cleaner, and the sander itself plugs into the vacuum. We need the vacuum because the sander creates a lot of dust, and without that the room would be full of dust, which can be quite dangerous. So of course we need to make sure that we are wearing the correct PPE. Now, the sander will only do the outside surface. It won't do the inside surface of your product. To sand the inside, we need to use a small piece of sandpaper and quite possibly a block. Okay, so now that we've sanded all our surfaces, we need to move on to the lid. Okay, next stage in our construction is the lid. First we need to mark the lid. Now, I'm going to mark it using my finger. We want about a 5mm margin running all the way around. You'll probably have to use a ruler and a pencil. This margin is where we're going to hand plane the lid back at an angle of 45 degrees. So we place the lid into the vise, we take our hand plane, we check our hand plane to see if the blades look okay. If you're not sure, make sure you come and see me so I can check the blade for you. We stand in an appropriate position next to the work. We put the hand plane on an angle to the timber and we start removing until we get somewhere near our line. We do that on all 4 edges until we have a nice chamfered finish. Here's one that I prepared earlier. The top has a nice chamfered angle. The bottom is still square. We don't hand plane the bottom, we only hand plane the top of the lid. Okay, we want to get organised for putting our hinges on now. The first thing we need to do is fold up 2 bits of masking tape. We place the masking tape at the back of the project. We then place the lid on top. This gives us a little bit of a gap at the back where our hinges are going to be placed. We also need to tape the lid into position. This will help us with our accuracy when applying the hinges to the project. Okay, so that's taped in position, looking pretty good. Alright, we've got a reasonable gap at the back. We now need our hinges. And we're going to place them 25mm in from the end. 20 to 25mm. Okay. Place our hinge down with the centre pin there in the middle of our gap. Same with the other one. Making sure that we've removed the tape off the hinge as best we can. Okay, I'm going to place the other one just there. Okay. Alright, our hinges are in place. Now we need to screw them into position. I like to start at the bottom. And then move from corner to corner. Making sure that your drill is on the low speed, not the high speed. This is very important. Now that we've got that hinge in position, the other 2 should be no problem. We just put them in. And we repeat the process on the other side. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Hinges are even. That's better, nice and even. Finishing off the last 2 before we can proceed on to the next section. Now, while I'm doing this, you can see there is a couple of pencil marks. Those, of course, need to be removed before we varnish. Of course, the whole project needs to be sanded up completely inside and out, including the lid, before we can proceed to varnish. Okay, now that we've had our hinges on, we've got a nice gap at the back. Okay, that'll stop the chance of the lid binding to the work and allow for nice free movement. Now we want to move to the front. We're up to putting on the jewellery box catch. Okay, we need to mark the half distance of our work. Of course it's 250 mil, so half that is 125. I've just got a little mark there. I'm going to take my catch, you can see here. I'm going to assemble the whole thing, place it on the box nice and evenly so that the bottom of that catch is at the bottom of the lid and the top of the bottom catch matches the top of the base. Okay, if you want to, you can tape that into position to make your life a little bit easier. So we'll put a little bit of masking tape over there, a little bit of tape over there, straighten it up a bit, and now we can put our pins in. Okay, one pin in there. Another pin in the other side. We might want to move that tape over just a little bit so we can get in there. And then we can do the bottom. Now that the top's on, the bottom probably shouldn't move too much, but you can never be too careful. This is a very tricky and delicate part of the operation, because these pins can move around a bit and you need to be very careful with your hammering and nailing because you may hit your fingers. Okay, that's lovely. Alright, our next job is we need to peel off all our tape. And check that everything's working, and of course give our final touch-ups, and that means a little bit of sanding on the inside and the outside, removing our little bits of tape here, and getting our job prepared for the final stage, which is varnishing.